Today I am just going to talk about colored pencils and blending. I'm using our mixed media paper that we will be using on our project at school. So it's a really thick paper and it's got tooth on either side. So one side is rougher and the other side is going to have less tooth and it's going to be smoother. I'm going to use the smoother side. You do want a little bit of tooth just because it helps with blending. Now the tooth is just how rough the paper is. So we look at it, it seems kind of smooth, but really there's all these little indentions, and this is where our color gets. So when we color lightly in an area, all that white, all that speckledness, that is the tooth that you can see. And then when we press down hard and burnish the paper, we get rid of that tooth. And what we're doing is we are laying down all of those fibers. And so we're making it smooth. And so that is what we are doing. One thing that's important that we want to keep in mind is you want your pencils to be sharp. You want them sharpened to a nice point. I would not recommend using a dull pencil. So have a sharpener with you. I sharpen my pencils here. And there we go. So I have nice sharp points. I'm using blues and a violet, white and black, orange, and the white and black are going to be used to add highlights and shadows, but we can also use yellow and orange to create those same effects, and I will show you in just a second. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually give myself an area to work with. I want to define the area. So I've got my ruler and I'm just going to create a rectangle. I want this rectangle to be long enough to hold about 3 different colors because I'm going to use those 2 blues and that violet. So I'm going to do maybe 1 inch by 3 inches and I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It'll be roughly that, hopefully a nice shape. So there we go. First, I just want to talk about how we use colored pencils. So when you hold it close to the tip, you have more control and you can put more pressure on it. You hold farther back on the pencil, you can do bigger areas, you're looser, it's lighter. What we want to do is either go in small circles or all in the same direction. I prefer circles, it covers the paper better. As you can see here, I also hold my pencil overhand, and I think that helps me just with control, but you do whatever is more comfortable for you. And we do want control, we want to create even spaces, and we're going to do a lot of layering. I want you to keep in mind that whatever surface you are working on can show up in your colored pencil. So my table has a texture to it. So I'm going to get a placemat and I'm going to put it underneath, and the placemat is smooth. That way I reduce the texture that shows up as I am coloring because I'm going to put pressure on this paper. So now when I create my color, when I lay it down, I don't get as much of that texture and I can smooth out the tooth of the paper better. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 3 colors and I'm just going to block in where I want. So this is my first layer and I'm just doing a nice light layer. As you can see, I'm going in circles for the most part. When I get to the edges, I just want a better clean edge, and so I will do a line. But for the most part, I work in circles, small circles, bigger circles, just to lay out that color. So there's my violet. Middle is going to be blue. If we think about that color wheel, I'm moving from one color to the next. So I'm just laying it out. Once again, this is my first layer, and then I'll finally lay out the lighter blue. And as I'm doing this, I'm just going to layer them together. So it's just layer upon layer upon layer. I'm going to come back in with the blue and the violet, creating a darker area, and you want to move into each other. You don't want a hard line where one stops and one starts. You want to soften that line so it's a nice smooth transition. So we are using Crayola colored pencils. These are not necessarily the best colored pencils for blending, but you can blend. It just takes a little bit longer and you have to build up those layers more. And it's absolutely possible. So the goal here is to burnish the paper in a way that we get to see all of the colored pencil. So as you can see here, I have built up my colors. It is more of a nice transition from that light blue to that violet. Okay, now I want to talk about our value. So adding black, we're going to create shades, and adding white, we're going to create tints. But we can also, with colored pencils, we can not just use black and white. And I actually urge you to step outside of that thought and add complementary colors or a lighter version of that color, just because you get a different feel. So here I'm going to create two 1x1 boxes, and one we're going to just do some highlights, and the other one we're going to do some shadows or lowlights. The first thing I'm doing is I'm laying a light color down first, and what I mean by that is I'm just lightly going over the paper, so I'm not really getting into the tooth of the paper right now. So down here we're going to start with shades, so I'm going to add that orange on top. Typically you lay the darker color down first, and then you keep layering. So I'll put some orange down, and then I'll add some more blue, and this is a very nice shadow. Using that complementary color creates that brown, and it creates a nice shadow. I'm not even using black in this example. I'm going to go ahead and pull the purple to just show you a different, how you can get dark with just a different color. Black takes over things really quickly, so if you do use black, you want to do light layers as you go. Once again, the key here is layers, just layering it up. And you do want to switch off and on, that way that color blends in better, because once the tooth is completely flat, you're not going to be able to blend as well. You do need a little bit of that tooth, a little bit of that grit in order for your colors to blend. Up here, I'm going to go ahead and blend a yellow into the blue. Yes, this actually creates a green, but if you think about it, it also creates a little bit of a highlight. That warm color is coming through. The more blue I add, the darker it gets. So once again, you need to be careful with how you're adding the colors and how you're layering them. White will give you a nice lighter color. I'm hoping that this shows up well in the video. It's all about layering. So I'm burnishing the white on top of the blue. You can make colored pencils look like paint on paper. The more layers you do, the better blending. We are only using burnishing as a blending technique. We can actually use paper stumps to blend. You can use mineral spirits to blend, but this is the technique that we are currently learning. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out. Otherwise, be artsy.